Almost all of us experience fear at one time or another. Fear is a terrible thing because it makes us believe sometimes that something that is not real is real. In fact, someone has said that fear, F-E-A-R, could stand for false evidence appearing real. And there are times that I have been afraid when I didn't need to be afraid. Things were easily explained if I just knew what to look for. But when I was about 13 years old, I was delivering newspapers, and the day before, we had been studying a story in school called The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. And it was a story about Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman. And as we studied that story and read that story in class, I began to get afraid. And I thought, wow, that's a scary story. And sometimes scary stories make us afraid of other things. So after that school day was over, I got up the next morning to go deliver my newspapers. And there was one hill on my paper route that was so steep that I couldn't pedal my bicycle up that hill. And I would have to get off and push my bicycle up to the top of the hill, and then I could get on it and start riding again. And as I was going up that hill, I was thinking about the story of Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman, the legend of Sleepy Hollow. And as I thought about that story, I could feel fear beginning to rise in me. You know, there is something about us that kind of likes to feel afraid sometimes, but then when it reaches a certain point, no, that's enough. And so as I was getting to the top of that hill, all of a sudden, I heard something coming up behind me. And when I turned around and looked, believe it or not, it was a horse. And this horse had horseshoes on, and so it was making a terrible noise, clop, clop, clopping. And when I turned, that horse just ran right by me, and I screamed so loud, I dropped my bicycle, spilled all my newspapers out of the basket of my bicycle, and then as the horse ran on, all of a sudden I realized what it was, of course, and then I started laughing. And I thought, now, I'm sure glad that nobody saw what happened, because I thought how funny I must have looked as I was screaming just because a horse was running by me. But it wasn't just the horse. It was the fact that I had had some stories told to me that made me afraid. And fear has a way of making us think the wrong things and then sometimes overreact whenever something happens.